Hello, welcome back to another episode of When We Cry Smoking Room. Today's topic will be about how do you convince? Ooh. So how do you convince? Okay, sorry, my brain just shorted out because I didn't realize that convince is a W or a V, so that sound just made zero, zero, and it's absolutely no neurons just had been activated. Okay. How to convince other people in your life to read Umineko / Higurashi or any Ryukishi work in general. So who do we have today?
Hey, I'm Kyle.
I'm Lurf.
Marcy.
And then there's me, your friendly neighborhood mushroom. I'm excited for everybody to hear since we've been talking about this before we even started the recording. So I want everybody to tell me, what is your success rate of convincing people to read Umineko in general, or just read any Ryukishi work. So, yeah, let's start from the top.
So, hypothetical success rate would be exactly 2 people, which is probably like a 12% success rate.
Okay.
But they haven't actually started it yet, so that's why it's hypothetical.
Oh, so these are 2 people that haven't gone that far?
No, they haven't started it. I just convinced them to sometime read it. One of them, I am trying to get them to read it before this summer, or at the latest start it this summer.
I suppose as for my success rate, I have convinced approximately 7-ish people to read Umineko, give or take. I'm trying to count all of them in my brain, but out of everyone I've tried to convince to read Umineko, I'd say I have a 90% success rate. At the very least, I know at least 5 or 6 of the 7 are either fully committed and we have prepared to read it together at some point, or they are currently in the middle of reading it.
Have any of the people you have been reading with finished it yet, or everybody's in the middle of their journey?
Everyone's in the middle of their journey. Currently, the person who is furthest along is mid EP6, right after George starts also Umineko spoilers. When George beats Ava's ass in the love trial. That's about the furthest anyone I've convinced to read has gotten so far.
So what about you, Marcy?
So my success rate is a little bit intangible, I suppose. I have some tangible examples, but most of mine are I just have to assume because I make YouTube videos, and I've made YouTube videos both about Higurashi and Umineko, and I have gotten quite a few comments from people here and there that were like, hey, I didn't know anything about this before, but then I watched your video and I decided to check it out, and it's pretty cool, or I'm thinking about checking it out. I think at least 3 to 4 times I've gotten somebody that was like, hey, so I watched your video on Umineko and I decided to go read it. And now I'm coming back to comment on the video now that I've finished it. And it's my favorite thing ever now. So thank you.
Oh, that's adorable.
Other than that, I've tried to convince some friends. I've had a couple friends start it, but I don't think I've had any finish it yet. I have read it with a couple of people, one of which being my own mother, who has read the entirety of Umineko.
That's actually the most impressive thing that could possibly be.
Yeah, it was a real experience. I had her take notes the whole time. We would while she was doing dinner prep and stuff, she would tell me about her theories and stuff like that.
Adorable.
And it was really fun.
That's great.
Sounds so wholesome.
How long did that take you?
I want to say we started reading it around January-ish of 2022, and then it took us until
October
to finish it.
Wow. So
which it was a little bit serendipitous that we finished it in October, speaking of which.
That's enough time to conceive a baby, I guess. So, that's impressive.
Well, also just because October is such an important month in Umineko itself.
That's great. Okay, so for my success rate of convincing people to read Umineko, so I basically forced my friend Ambi to sit in front of a computer and read Umineko for 2 years. We finished all of Umineko, which was like a pretty successful story, I guess. I had my old roommate who read all the manga. She was a person who didn't really like engage with the mystery part, but engaged with like the emotional part of it. Like she read Umineko like a narrative. Like I feel like I actually had a recent conversation with somebody about like how the manga doesn't actually really like provoke you to solve the mystery as much as the VN does. And like, you know, you basically spend a lot of time in the VM like marinating in the juice of Ryukishi telling you that you suck and you should solve the mystery. But like, the manga doesn't actually really do that, which you could just really like read a chapter to chapter and then you get to the end and you're like, wow, like it's still a very emotional roller coaster, but it doesn't really ask you to solve the mystery. The third person that I am convincing to read Umineko is currently on EP4. They're currently basically rereading their 55 pages of notes, and they accidentally had convinced somebody else to read it with them, so they can be the person to like bounce off theories with, because they got sick of me basically being like, so you think Kingzo, and then I was like, and they were like basically sick of me doing that, so they inadvertently like made somebody else read like all of like the first 4 EPs of manga so they can talk to the other person with. So you know, God. Now so while I maybe not be that successful, maybe I only convinced 3 people in total, but like my third person convinced somebody else to read it, so like that's pretty cool.
I do think that is kind of funny, because my mom also said that she got really sick of hearing the word interesting while we were reading because of that very reason.
Yeah, basically the funniest part, okay, so this will be spoilers for the for EP4, but basically every single time my friend would say a theory about like, well, like what if they did this with like, you know, like the help of like Kingzo something, and I would be like, well, but Kingzo's dead, and he's like, I know, do you not think I know that? And then, it was very, very funny, because they're on their reread of EP2 and they're trying to come up with theories, and they were like, well, like they went to talk to Kingzo and got this gun, and I was like, well, what does that mean?
Did they talk to Kingzo?
Did they talk to Kingzo? Who's Kingzo? And they're like, well, wouldn't that be the $1 million question? Okay, so since I got to hear everybody of their success rate, I wanted to ask, like, how do any of you try to like convince people of Umineko? Because, you know, Umineko is a lot of things, but there's a lot of things that it's not, and the part that makes Umineko hard to convince other people to read is like all the good. It's 200 hours long on like minimally, and B, it's also you know, every single thing you need to have a content or trigger warning for is, you know, a spoiler. And C, like that, you know, every single good thing about it is also a spoiler. So yeah. So how do you try to like convince people? Like, Kyle, do you want to go first? Like, how would you start your like your elevator pitch if somebody was trapped in the elevator with you and you have to you force them at gunpoint to read Umineko? Like, how would you tell them?
Alright, so I actually have a lot of, like, logs of me going on, like, a public server for the local library I used to go to. It's just making, like, 14-paragraph-long essays on why you should read Umineko without any spoilers. And it mostly boils down to me just gushing about it forever.
Just unhinged logs. I really wish I was in a local library near you and I just get to read these and was like, who the fuck is this person? I need to be their friend. And just me sitting at the library every week just so I can find this person.
Let me see if I can find one later this episode, but like I probably shouldn't read the entire thing out, but
just looks
anyway.
like an unhinged copy pasta.
Oh god! Oh wait, no, that was for Sonic Frontiers, not Umineko. I just saw another 6-paragraph post. Yeah, it's very similar.
Yeah, they're basically the same thing.
Basically the same. But for my actual success stories, air quotes again, I have basically just, You know how when you're learning a language, the best way to do it is just to fully immerse yourself in it? I've just subliminally input Umineko into my conversation. And I just keep bringing it up until they finally crack. No,
It's actually really funny that you say that subliminally, like, trying to convince me to read Umineko, because I'm in this university club who I'm a vice president for, and that basically the whole joke that anybody knows me is like, oh yeah, that's the person who likes Japanese PowerPoint games, and that like people would be like, basically I would just start every year when I introduce myself, I say, okay, these are the things you need to know about me, these are the things you need to know about the club, and also if you have read Umineko and you can come up to me and you prove me you read it, I will give you $20 by the end of this week.
Oh, that's so good.
That's a good argument.
Actually, that would be good incentive. Like, if I had friends, I'd be like, listen, I'll just, like, give you money if you read.
Yeah, no, well, that's actually really funny because I have that, but with Celeste. So I finished all of Celeste, and I'm a tryhard, so like I finished all like A side, and then I finished most of B side. The thing I didn't finish was Core B, I'm fairly sure. But right now, I'm such a bad Celeste player because I'm just not, my fingers are not as nimble as I could be, and the only thing that keeps me going is that I am just stubborn, like that's literally it. And my friend said this to me, Mushroom like Farewell was awful, and if you think you're bad at Celeste and I like you're good, like if you finish Farewell, I'll give you $100. And I was like,
oh
wow, that's fucked up that you bet that I can't finish Farewell by wagering $100. So now our joke is that like, so currently, like, if anybody in our audience or in here who knows Celeste and knows what Farewell map looks like, I'm currently in that room that starts to look, in the very beginning, starts like a Arctic Monkeys album cover, and yeah, I haven't stuck there for like 5 months.
Jesus.
And I have seen what the Farewell like how far my progression is on a Farewell speed run, and like, or a Farewell regular run, and I know I'm only halfway there. So maybe one day I'm gonna get my $100 bill. Maybe I won't. Who knows?
Oh my god.
For $100.
Fantastic.
Money, I think money's a good incentive. Honestly, I haven't tried that one.
Yeah, just pay off your friends.
I keep buying people Umineko when it's on sale, and I'm just like, please buy this game. I will buy this game for you.
Yeah, this is why I have all of my Umineko games in a drive where I'm like, hey, I know you want to read Umineko, I'll give you my drive link, just pirate it. And then they were like, no, I'll buy it. And I was like, literally every single person I convinced of reading Umineko somehow bought their own game, and I was like, wow, I was gonna offer you for free, like what the fuck?
Oh, see, the way I've gotten most people to read Umineko is that I stream it for them. So, like, whenever, like, hangout hours, I'm like, do you want to read Umineko? Or you want to get, like, Umineko theorizing in? And they're like, yeah, sure, because it's easy, because I just pop up the stream.
But, like, and there's no Netflix and chill. It's actually gonna be Umineko, like, sit down.
Yeah.
That actually reminds me, I did a similar thing very, very long time ago. Back when they had back when Skype wasn't total dog shit, and everybody was using it instead of Discord because Discord didn't exist yet. I used the Skype screen sharing to stream all of Onikakushi-hen in Higurashi, the VN, for a couple of my friends. I don't know if they ever actually went on to read any more of it past that point, but they seemed to really enjoy Onikakushi at least.
Onikakushi is a good chapter, so that makes a lot of sense.
It is.
It's a great way to drop people in, which I mean, I guess so, since it's the first one, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, overall, Higurashi, even though it is the first one, is still like a really good, just like gateway into the rest of the When We Cry series.
And you mentioned this earlier, but it's true that like, as much as I do have issues with it and wouldn't necessarily recommend it over the VN, the Higurashi anime, the Studio Dean anime, is a pretty good way to like get the uninitiated in, to just like kind of drip feed them into the franchise.
My favorite part about the Higurashi anime is that it's the type of anime that makes people think they're smart before you actually, like, it's Higurashi anime is okay. Like, it's so funny because I actually never even thought about the fact that like Higurashi anime was bad, like, per se, because I watched it when I was 13 and then just like, you know, didn't really think that critically about it. Neither have I, like only went back to it later on to read the manga for Higurashi and being like, oh yeah, this was really good, like, you know, like not very like, you know, had a lot of thoughts about it until I like joined the server and started talking to people about who, you know, who read Higurashi like VN and who had like a lot of opinions about the anime. And then that's when I was like, oh, it was bad, actually, TM. And I was like, and then it was a bad adaptation of a very good source material. And the only reason that it was good is because the source material was just that good that even when you like take off all of the really, really good parts, is that like it still like had something tangible for like, you know, a anime only crowd to get into. Like, but like truly speaking, every single person who I ever met who read who watched the Higurashi anime loved it and thought it was incredibly intelligent and so funny, to the point that like my friend took a class for like who's basically like anime literacy, like literacy was like one of the class they took in college, and like they're like the two anime that the teacher made them watch, like a long form anime, was you can either choose from watching all of EVA or watching all of Higurashi. So I don't know what that really says about the class, the teacher.
I would want like, that class.
That sounds like an awesome fucking class.
Yes, it does.
It's pumped.
They basically spend a lot of time writing video essays. That's literally, like, not video essay, but just essays about anime. Like, for example...
I do that in my free time.
For that class, my friend had to watch, like, Millennial Actress and Perfect Blue as a double feature, and I was like, what do you mean? That just sounds like a good time.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, count me in, we're showing up, I'm watching fucking Perfect Blue. And
you want me to watch Perfect Blue for an assignment? I would have done that by myself anyway, so...
Exactly.
Why got Naya taking this class?
Right? I'm like sitting here like, I'm an animation major, like why don't I have this class?
Yeah, I feel like this podcast episode is to convincing you to take this class at a college.
Yeah.
No.
But
For real.
I would have to say, like, how do I say this? Like, you know how Kishi does this thing where he basically trains you to be the perfect reader, you like, you know, to either you like, you know, continuously read and you become the reader that Kishi wanted you to be, or you're just mad at like a certain point, which, you know, which, you know, we see a lot of people become on r/Umineko, which is, you know, the form of my comedy. But I was thinking about this a lot. Like, to me, like, at a point in my life, the reason why I joined this podcast is because I realized that at a certain point in my life, I'm going to become insufferable, more insufferable than I am already now. So I had to basically contain my uncontainable feelings about Umineko to be on a podcast, so then I could stop talking to my like regular everyday people and go on 2-hour-long tangents about like this cool PowerPoint game that I love, and that. Now I just basically like, you know, I survey the friends around me and like look at the people, and then I will like whisper in their ears and be like, hey, do you want to know about this cool thing called Umineko? I think it's made for you. Like, Kishi's looking for people like you to read it.
Like fucking army recruitment poster for Umineko.
It just sounds like you're the devil.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think that actually is a good point of like how to bring friends into the fold is... like, When They Cry encompasses so many different things, like so many different, I wouldn't say like genres, I guess, but I mean, in a sense, I guess, but it has so many moving parts that are appealing to different people for different reasons that I think, like, if you survey your friends and, like, find out what exactly it is that they like the most, or, like, what appeals to them, there is something in one of these games that you can, like, use that as a foothold to be like, oh, hey, you like historical fiction? Well, Umineko has a lot of, like, references to Japanese culture and, like, history and stuff. Or, like, hey, are you really big into, like, supernatural mystery? Then I bet you'll really like Higurashi, because it has a lot of that. Yeah, that sort of thing. Just kind of about finding those common threads that you can loop through. And then that way, when it comes to the stuff that you may not necessarily be able to readily sell them on, it will be part of the thing they're already interested in. So they're like, okay, well, I'll go with the ride.
Yeah, I mean, that is the true key to success. And the thing is, I've been told that I have, like, unbelievably high charisma because I have convinced strangers I have known for no more than, like, 20 minutes to read Umineko. Like, honest to God, true story, I was doing henna tattoos at a fair for, like, one of my summer jobs, and I was talking with this person. They're like, yeah, I'm, like, an English major. Like, we started talking, and they bring up House of Leaves. And I look at it, and I'm like, you like House of Leaves? Well, oh boy, do you like mysteries too? And they're like, yeah, I'm like an Agatha Christie fan, and like blah blah
and
blah. And I'm like,
boy,
do I have a recommendation for you? I got their phone number.
Wow.
I don't know if they have started reading it, but they seemed very interested. I also convinced someone I knew playing Overwatch for, like, maybe, like, you know, like 3 rounds together. We were chatting, and they mentioned liking, like, horror media and, like, dark media and stuff, and I was like, have you ever heard of Umineko? And they're like, what? And I'm like, it's really good. Have you ever heard of, like, When They Cry, like, Higurashi? They're like, yeah, I've read the Higurashi visual novel. And I'm like, did you know there's another one by the same author? And long story short, they have joined my Reading Umineko server, and they are going to start reading soon. So it's just, I think the most important thing when recruiting someone to read Umineko is knowing your audience, because the second you know something that they're interested in, Umineko has so many things in it, like you were saying, Marcy. And especially if they have either watched or read Higurashi before, like, every time I've had a friend watch the Higurashi anime, it is 100% success rate to get them into Umineko, because people who watch the Higurashi anime, even if they don't read the VN, if you don't read the VN, you think the Higurashi anime is amazing, and then you feel really smart rewatching it because you're like, I understand everything now. That's how I felt when I first watched Higurashi before I knew there was a better Higurashi. And so I'm like, you know, there's a media that makes you feel even smarter upon a reread, but it's really long, but it's by the same author, and they're like, you know what? Like, I really liked Higurashi, like, sure, like, why the fuck not? And sometimes it takes a little extra convincing. My friend Emily, when I was trying to convince her to read Umineko, it was like right before we finished Higurashi, and I was like, there's like at least 4 MILFs, if not more. Like, I know you love hot older women who can kick your ass.
I love the fact that that's what you sell people on. It's like, yes, you need the MILFs. That's all.
The thing is, as long as you know, like, the one thing that will get them, it works. Like, she's on fucking, like, episode 4 right now because of the MILFs.
I mean, it would convince me.
No, like, there's so many girl bosses in Umineko. It was, like, the perfect, like, in for her. Because she was also simping for Takano, and I'm like, oh, so you like hot women who kill people? Boy, do I have the media for you.
I too am a problematic women enjoyer.
No.
Yeah.
Literally. I found that English majors are really easy to convince to read Umineko. I've done that.
Yeah, exactly. If you are sad enough to become an English major, you're of course sad enough to read like a 200. You know, like, what kind of self-respecting person will become an English major? So, like, you know, you definitely could be bullied into reading a 200-hour VN.
Oh, absolutely. I think my weirdest success story is with my friend Austin, because basically he joined me and my friend Emily for like a brief moment when watching Higurashi. But the thing is, he came in like really early Higurashi, and he saw the bullshittery, the slice of life stuff, and he's like, I'm not like into this at all. I'm like, no, come on, like it gets really good. Like I know you're into like horror, you read fucking like Berserk and stuff, and he's like, yeah, maybe, and then he never came back. And then I was trying to convince him to read Umineko, and he's like, no, it's not happening. It's not for me. I'm not gonna get into it. Like, you know, like it's just, you know, it's not my kind of media. And you know, like it's reasonable. Like, no, I can't focus on 200 hours of visual novel. And I was like, okay. But I was sitting here, I was like, but you'll really, really love it if you get into it. And fucking last year on my birthday, he was like, what do you want? And I was like, read Umineko with me. And he was like, you know what, fine, I will read one chapter of Umineko. And I'm like, I must implore you to read the entirety of episode 1 in the tea parties, and then afterwards, whether you want to, you know, if you want to continue or not, that's up to you. And he's like, fine, you know what, I'll do it. I'll read one little slice of Umineko for you. And we read it. He's on episode 3 now. He's so engrossed. He's so invested. I like knew the second he got to the first Twilights, it was over for him.
Yep, that's what happens. If you get somebody deep enough, then they're gonna be like, oh no, I'm trapped.
Yeah, I mean, I could have even just said, like, the first 10 hours of Umineko, and I know I would have gotten him hooked, but, like, if you finish episode 1, like, if you enjoyed it, which, like,
over.
Most people do, it's over for you. Like, you're not escaping. You're gonna read the rest of
it. I just
so, like, the second you read, I was like, yes!
Like, I love the idea of, I think there's two funny things about this. It's like the thing I love about is like, well, what should give me for a birthday present? You should read Umineko. That's literally, so I actually have a really funny example about like how to get people into reading Umineko. So my friend Dubs, who's currently on EP4, who's like the person who like, or finished EP4 and is like been stuck there for like 6 months now, is the reason why I got him into reading Umineko is this reason, is that basically he, at that point, like he just watched Knives Out and he's just telling me about how good Knives Out is. He's like, oh my god, Knives Out is so good. And I was like, girl, I also watched Knives Out and I thought it was good. And he was like, no, you like, these are all the reason why Knives Out is good. And I was like, yes, I watched Clue before I watched Knives Out. And then I was like, there's at a certain point, I was like, you need to shut the fuck up about Knives Out. Like, I know, like, I was like, okay, I was like, you either stop telling me about Knives Out or go, like, start reading Umineko for me. Like, I genuinely speaking cannot stand you talking about this fucking movie anymore. It's like, yes, I thought it was good, but no, I don't think it's like genre like melting as like you think it is. Like, you have actively made this movie bad for me, so now go now please go start reading Umineko. And that the funny thing is that like I think last year he was like, oh, like I didn't prepare you a birthday present because I didn't know what to do, but I have prepared for you 4 hours of Umineko reading. And I was like, and then I was like, wow, that was the nicest thing that you could have possibly done for me. I wouldn't have wanted anything else from you.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea.
Yeah, just be like, I guilt trip you to spend time with me, and the time you're spending with me is reading Umineko. It's my birthday.
Read Umineko with me. I'm just a little birthday guy on my birthday, so read this 200 hour visual novel with me.
No, the best part is that like it's really funny because the Umineko stage play hasn't finished translating yet, but like, and I felt really bad and I didn't want to live translate for a bunch of friends, not because it's just because like live translating only works if you already know enough of Umineko to like understand like all the nuances of why like people are saying these things, or it just involves too much like pausing and starting to like explaining like, why the fuck are they talking about financial things? Who are these people? Why are they here? But the original plan was I was gonna be like, it's my birthday, everybody's gonna strap in and we're gonna watch 3 hours of Umineko stage play.
I do actually think.
Oh my god! I mean, I streamed the Umineko stage play for one of my friends, and my friend CJ was there. It was his partner, and CJ knows a little bit of Japanese. I know like the plot of Umineko like the back of my hand. Like I'm an Umineko encyclopedia. You name a vague scene, I know exactly what episode, what chapter it's in. And so like basically with our powers combined, we explained the entire story as we went. And so the friend who was watching got so invested that they were like actually upset when Nazi died at the end.
I think actually, speaking of the stage play, when and I'm saying when because I'm manifesting, I need it to happen, when it gets fan subbed in the future, I think that would actually be a really good way, because I have a lot of friends,
people, yeah.
I have a lot of friends who are like theater kids, or like at least really appreciate theater, so I think that would be a very good way to be like, hey, you could watch this play of the thing that I like, and then when inevitably they're like, oh, that was really good, you'd be like, by the way, there's 7 more of these in long prose form that you can read.
When it gets out, I will become
I'm so
the
excited.
worst kind of demon to get people with the Umineko.
Oh yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
If you think I'm insufferable now, wait till it comes out then.
Just wait until you can devour this play in the time you could make a 7-course meal.
Yeah.
Literally, it's gonna be like the new fucking way to get people into Umineko, because you can't do the anime.
It's my sleepover, and I get to pick the movie.
Yeah. Oh my
No,
god.
it's fucking wild. It's such a good way to experience it. Like that's just not the subpar way of the anime, and it's actually genuinely speaking a great like way to like get people in. Like, God, I don't know what we deserve.
I know.
To have
I only wish we had more of it.
Yeah,
Right?
I only wish we have more. Exactly. I mean, if like I don't know, maybe they will see like the successfulness of like how much like they made through like DVD sales and like I heard it was like a very packed theater. They only did it for 3 days, which is crazy to me because you know it's so fucking good.
Yeah, I think they just like, I mean, obviously as we're recording this, probably not as it's going up, but like just the other day they were talking about how they were starting to sell DVDs and stuff, so hopefully that performs well.
I want to buy a DVD real bad.
I should, if I can.
Yeah, no,
Fingers
buying
crossed.
stuff overseas is like incredibly difficult and involves involves the amount of like patience that one needs to have while filing your own taxes. So like I don't truly like despicable things.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask like, so if you had to basically like list of media you think like if you like blah media you will like Umineko, like what would be like the list of media? Like I think we mentioned like House of Leaves, like that's a very obvious
House of
example. Like
Absolutely.
House of
If
Leaves
you
is
read
my
House of
favorite
Leaves-
book, so yeah.
like my favorite thing about House of Leaves is that House of Leaves is a book trapped in a video essay trapped in a book somehow.
Yeah.
It's like halfway through the book it's just like, and these are my interpretations, and like also like and it's just like it's such a funny book that it's like such ahead of its time. And like, and if you read it at a certain point of your life, you're either just like, this is either too much of a navel gazing or just the best shit of all time.
Oh yeah, it's like mystery wrapped in metaphor, wrapped in other metaphor, like it kind of gets you on so many layers of being like, hey, do you like mystery stories? You should read this. And then it's like, psych, just kidding. It might not actually be a literal mystery. It might be about my feelings. And then, yeah, if you're, you know, it might get
So
you that way.
Umineko.
Which, and then, yeah, exactly. Like Umineko does kind of the same thing, just in a different way.
Yeah, there's keeping it very vague as to not spoil House of Leaves, but there was one part in House of Leaves near the end where basically, you know, main character lad who's, you know, like basically like writing this book interjecting basically has a psych moment, and that hit me in the gut. It was the most Umineko thing I've ever read before I even read Umineko, but I was like, what the fuck?
Sounds like I need to read this.
Yeah, that got me.
And it recontextualized the entire book for me.
I know exactly what you're
Ooh.
talking about, and that one
Why
took me
am I
out.
crazy? Wait, somebody needs to DM me what this
I'll
is
DM it
because...
to you.
Okay.
Also the bit with the dog, but I won't elaborate any
Oh,
further.
dog part. Yeah, that was a good part. Yeah, hustling is good. I also have to say, like, if you have a friend who's insufferable, who all they want to do is talk to you about how good Knives Out is, just tell them to read
Or
Umineko,
Glass
just shut
Onion.
them. Or Glass Onion. Yeah, no. Tell them that Knives Out is answer arc of question arc of Umineko, and Glass Onion is the answer arc of Umineko. That's it. That's the end. That's all you need to know.
I'm trying to think of other sort of similar recommendations that would kind of bounce off of that well. I mean, obviously if you like Agatha Christie books, then yes.
I would say House and Fata Morgana.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I'll
yes.
also say Satoshi Kon works.
If you hated BBC Sherlock, you should read Umineko.
The issue is that the Venn diagram of Umineko
Yeah, that's
readers
true.
and Fata Morgana readers is a circle. Like,
No, that's literally it though. Okay, this is actually really funny because I have never met a Fata Morgana reader
Yeah.
who wasn't already originally a Umineko reader. I genuinely speaking, there's very, very rare people. I think Yesid is one person in this server that's actually just the opposite of it. Yesid read Yesid read Fata Morgana first and then read Umineko, and I was like, damn, there's people out there who did that, and that's crazy to me.
Yeah, I have 2 friends that I know that are really into Fata Morgana that have never read Umineko, and I was like, okay, well, you know what you have to do. You know what you must do.
I'll be waiting. It's the One Piece image. I'll be waiting for you on the island of Rokenzima.
As I was saying earlier, if someone likes anything Satoshi Kon has made, like Perfect Blue, Paranoia Agent, especially Paranoia Agent, in my opinion, they will love Umineko. Satoshi Kon is the one creator where I'm like, your works embody so much of what Umineko is, just in the way it's presented.
About the Satoshi Kon thought, but also about the Fata Morgana thought, is that is one thing that drives me crazy is that during an interview in 2014, somebody was like, hey, to the creator of Fata Morgana, have you ever read Umineko? And then he was like, no, but people keep asking me about it.
It's really funny.
And it's fucking wild if you have read Fata Morgana and then you're like, how is this not just went hand in hand with Umineko on every stage of the creative process? Just the astral projection of the ability to write the same story but not really is insane to me.
Some people are just built different.
Satoshi Kon. Des recently went and watched all of Satoshi Kon's work, and I was it's really sad that he only made 5 pieces of media ever, but the 5 pieces of media are all amazing.
Yeah.
I want to make work like him someday. He's my inspiration. I fucking love
He's so
everything
cool.
that came that he directed.
If you have friends that are really into Satoshi Kon works, I think that would be a good elevator pitch, because one thing that Satoshi Kon's really good at is emphasizing atmospheric dread while also linking that into social issues and stuff and peeling those back through that lens. So if somebody really enjoys that type of stuff, you can be like, hey, When They Cry does that a lot.
Also with Satoshi Kon's whole thing of derealization and kind of separating yourself from reality and struggling to tell fact from fiction is very honestly, it's pretty core in every When They Cry work, not just Umineko. In different ways, obviously.
If you feel for the protagonist of Perfect Blue, you will Beatrice of the Golden Witch.
Pretty much exactly. Another one, which if someone likes this, they'll definitely like the When They Cry series, because I've noticed a correlation. If you know someone who has read Homestuck and either really liked it or wished it was better, get them into When They Cry, because just long form.
It's Homestuck, but if good.
I mean, I think Homestuck's relatively.
Well, see, I was gonna
good,
say,
but, like, you can't compare.
No,
it.
I'm just kidding.
I was gonna say, actually, like, for a similar reason, although they are, like, very different things. If you have a person, like, if you know a person that really likes One Piece, the one thing you can at least say is, like, bro, if you've read One Piece, you have read so much fiction. Like, you have spent so much time catching up to this thing. You don't, like, time is not an excuse for you.
Time isn't real for you. You read One Piece.
You exist above time.
I could understand that. Like, basically, if you have the ability to consume a media more than 200 hours, like, bitch, this piece of media is made for you, man. Like, if you like Dante's Inferno, you'll
it's so true. A good, like, something I've noticed that works pretty well with pitching Umineko, because one of the hardest things to pitch with Umineko is the time thing, because you're like, it's 200 fucking hours, and, like, it's really long, and, like, that's, like, the number one thing everyone talks about with Umineko. It's so fucking long. But the thing is, I don't remember who made the video, but there's, like, a video out there that's like, oh, this is how long Umineko is, and I'm like, everyone in middle school
made that video.
Has read the Harry Potter series. We don't talk about J.K. Rowling, but, like, so many people have read Harry Potter. It's basically as long as the entire Harry Potter series. So if you pitch that to people instead, it becomes suddenly a lot more feasible to read Umineko.
Yeah, because it's not an abstract number of hours at that point. Like, at that point, it's like, oh, that's comparable to thing I already did that one time.
Yeah. And you get to have actual good representations, you know?
Yeah.
Like, have you thought about that?
Good writing.
Imagine good writing by someone who doesn't hate trans people.
Yeah, imagine reading a Japanese man from, like, 10 to 15 years ago who actually got it and wasn't bad for some fucking reason.
By some miracle.
It never
somehow.
It never ceased to amaze me that Umineko was good TM and wasn't problematic. I mean, like, it's, like, or not problematic by that case, because, like, it's, like, a weird thing where people are like, murder's problematic, and I was like, yeah, duh, like, what the fuck do you mean?
Well,
you
yeah.
think people write about murder think murder's good, or, like, it's actually incredibly based or something?
Well, actually, I think murder is incredibly based, and I think everything that Beatrice did was justified.
In the wise words of my friend CJ,
I agree.
when talking about Beatrice, cool motives, still murder, but yes, she still is my poor little meow meow, and all three can be true.
Oh my god. Yeah, and I think, like, Umineko is just the kind of media where if you have already accidentally sank time into something else, you'll like Umineko. This is actually a really funny thing. Shout out to that one person who read Stormlight Archive because of me. So the person who I convinced to read Umineko in my real life read Stormlight Archive before. And if you know anything about Brandon Sanderson works, is that every book of his is like 2,000 pages. And I read, like, all 4 books of Stormlight Archive in, like, maybe, like, 2 weeks max. It's incredible. There's this character named Shalyn, and she is the most Umineko person that has ever Umineko'd, ever. I don't know how to explain it. She's like a cis woman version of Beatrice. Like, it's very, like, okay, I'll go into this a little bit after I finish my explanation, but, thank you, that person who said, oh yeah, I heard you say something about, like, Umineko and Shalyn, and now I have read, Stormlight Archive, and it was a great time, and, like, thanks, I'm so glad. If you find me on Discord, I'll totally talk to you about it, but, so I'm going to describe you what Stormlight Archive is, because while I would love for you to read it, I don't know if this is a spoiler. I don't know if this counts as a spoiler in a way that people think it is, and it probably will make you want to read this more, because if you read the first book of Stormlight Archive, you would think this is the most boring piece of book of all time. But the thing about Shalyn that is a Umineko spoiler is that she is a light weaver, which makes her basically be able to like make different identities. But the problem about making different identities is that now she's living different lives in a way that's dramatically different. She makes makes a version of herself that is basically a sneaky person who like is more like cold-hearted and it does all the cool shit. But that version of herself falls in love with somebody else than her. And now she spends the whole and then she has a third versions of herself that is basically is like, why would we need love? Love is completely useless, and we need to win and to prove herself in this male dominated society. And then Shaolin herself loved this guy who's supposed to be her fiance, and she has this version of herself called Formless that is ready to eat her alive, basically to destroy her life and sabotage every single part of her relationship. And you're just sitting here reading Umineko, and you're like, how did you do this, motherfucker? Did you read Umineko? How is this? Are you just a cis woman version of Beatrice of Umineko? What is this? Answer me. And I just scream. I don't know. Sometimes you just read things and you're like this is like Umineko.
Yeah.
You know how you walk into life situations and you point at this and you're like, this is just like...
Yo, this is just like Umineko.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. I feel mortified by the fact that, Umineko exists, and now I have to measure every single thing in my life with Umineko.
That actually just reminded me, too. If you know anybody that is into Gideon the Ninth or Harrow the Ninth, any of those locked tomb books that I don't know that much about myself, but I do know that the author is a huge Umineko fan and admitted to referencing Umineko in the books. So if you know anybody who likes those, then tell them, hey, that author really likes Umineko.
If you
so
liked
you probably
Amori,
would too.
If you liked Amori,
Yeah.
Umineko. The person who did the person who did the Omori soundtrack is a Umineko fan and did 2 very obvious ZTS scores in Omori.
I know one of them is Golden Revenge here. What's the World End one?
It's World End. It's World End Valentine, and it's the song that plays when you fight Sweetheart.
Okay.
Yeah.
I still need to finish the
Oh
book.
yes.
Okay.
Speaking of soundtrack inspirations, actually, I guess this kind of counts as something that could be recommended from. If you are a fan of Vast Error, which is a it's sort of Homestuck adjacent fan comic that my friend Austin created, but it's got a pretty decently big audience. There is some soundtrack inspiration from Umineko in there. My friend Rom did a track for the Vast Error VN Snowbound Blood that is called Corrupted Cultist, and it is very much in the vein of a ZTS track. So if you enjoy that comic, especially if you enjoyed Snowbound Blood because it's very VN-ish, you'll probably like Umineko.
I'm thinking of animes that are semi when they cry adjacent, not really, but things that I know if someone enjoyed them they would probably like Umineko. And if someone is a fan of Angel Beats, Death Parade, or if you really liked the twists and reveals of Attack on Titan, I feel like you would like When They Cry stuff, because going back and rewatching Attack on Titan after knowing that and seeing the way people acted and reacted to things and realizing it was in your face the whole time, that kind of feeling is present in every When They Cry work.
Oh yeah.
So definitely, if you enjoyed those, Umineko is for you. I fully believe that.
That last part of being able to basically see the story from every character's perspective, kind of, and understand all that about Umineko is actually the main reason I got one of my friends into it. And I know they'd really like it if they started it, but they just don't.
Oh.
It's well,
Here's my little niche thing. If you liked Night in the Woods, I think you'd really like Umineko.
Yes.
Okay, this is my new pitch. If you're gay and
if you are gay or trans or a member of the LGBT community in any way,
you're a member of the. If you like estrogen, have I introduced you to Umineko?
Although, I don't know if you can use that as a pitch, because that's kind of like a massive...
No, okay, actually, this is the next topic I am going to talk about. Okay, so, for people who want to introduce Umineko to people, how would you go about spoilers of just spoiler, like, content warning? Since... Okay, this will now involve full-on Umineko spoilers, if I wasn't already at this point. There's a lot of things that happen to Umineko. Like, you know, child abuse is whatever at this point. Like, we have all seen child abuse. Like,
whatever.
I have, because I have friends who are okay with, like, varying levels of spoilers, and I would never, like, fully spoil something Umineko, because that is a crime. But I remember... My friend CJ is the first person I've ever convinced to read Umineko, and I was convincing CJ whilst I was in the middle of reading Umineko. So, like, the thought of spoilers hadn't really, like, fully sunk in on me yet. And so I basically told CJ, and CJ has forgotten this, which I'm very grateful for, but I told CJ, yo, there's good non-binary and trans representation in Umineko. You wouldn't believe. Also, there's no magic in Umineko, no matter what anyone tells you. And CJ took those three things and was like, there is no magic in Umineko, and it's the only thing he had on his mind throughout reading all of Umineko. And it got him to think a lot more. Especially after EP3, when, like, he figured out, like, how to, like, deal with it, because before he was just being, like, battling, like, being like, no, it's not magic, it's fake, it's a lie, and I'm like, okay, but what does it mean? And he's like, I don't know, and then he realized that, like, you could actually take things away from the magic scenes and use it to solve, and he was like, oh, wait, that makes sense. But he completely forgot about the trans thing, because now he's, like... He keeps, like, going back to, like, he's between Canon or Shannon being Beatrice. He keeps flip-flopping between the two. He's like, maybe it's both, but I don't know, while he's in the middle of the love trial. And he's like, but if it's canon, it doesn't explain all of Beatrice's themes of womanhood. And so he's, like, thinking, like, oh, like, maybe, like, canon will be, like, the reverse trans trope where he was assigned female at birth and he has to accept his womanhood or something like that. And I'm sitting here and, you know, thinking about that. And I'm like, thank fucking God you forgot that I said Umineko had good trans representation, because then you would solve Umineko. But in terms of that, if having good representation is something that's, like, basically, like, the one thing that's going to convince someone, what I do is I tell someone that there's, like, an egg in the cast. And I say nothing about it, but I say there's an egg. And the thing is, a lot of my friends interpret that as me being like, this character has big vibes, and this is my headcanon, and I want to see if you pick up on the vibes the same way I do. Meanwhile, I'm just being honest. But aside from that, I try to keep spoilers to an absolute minimum. Like, you know, like, my base pitch for Umineko, like, if I have to go further than explaining, like, it's really fucking good and a murder mystery, is, like, it's about, you know, like, that, you know, like, there's this island and a family's on it, they get stuck in a typhoon, and there's, like, this weird legend about a witch on the island, and murders start happening. It's like, ooh, is it the evil witch, or is someone just a fucking murderer? And that's the plot. And it's really good, I promise. But I don't go beyond, like, you know, like, I try to not go beyond episode 1 for spoilers. It's, like, that means, like, including the tea parties. Like, I don't say anything that happens at the tea parties, obviously. And I, especially, beyond just letting them know it's a murder mystery, because it's obviously a murder mystery the second they go to an island, like, come on. You recognize the tropes.
To an island.
Your rich family goes to an island and a typhoon is coming, like, obviously a murder's gonna happen, and everyone's fighting over the inheritance. It's a murder mystery. You just know immediately. But never... best thing to do, never tell them, you know, anything relating to the murders. So many people, they read the epitaph and they're like, sacrifice the 6 chosen by the key, and then so many more murders happen. And everyone's like, I wonder who the first death is going to be. And then they're like, 6 fucking people, that's a third of the cast! But, like, aside from that, like, spoilers, try to keep away from them if you can. Because obviously, the more blind someone goes into Umineko, the better. Like, I've had people where I'm just like, yeah, it's really good, like, horror mystery, stuff like that. Like, my friend from Overwatch, that's basically all I told her, was like, same person from Higurashi, horror, mystery, really good, might have some fucked up thieves, and they're like, yeah, I'm so down, I'll read it. And and they got no clue what to look for. I think possible warning about Battler being the way he is in early Umineko, like the boob thing. I basically
anime
like, there are some
stuff,
wacky anime tropes with the main character. He gets better. It doesn't continue throughout the whole thing. Like, that's like my blanket pitch for Battler, because that's like the one really difficult slope to get over. And
it's right at the beginning.
Yeah. And in terms of triggers, like, most of my friends, I know what really, like, it freaks them out. And one good thing about Umineko is a lot of it is via metaphor and, like, isn't directly shown, which it's, like, the direct stuff that really usually gets people. But, like, my friend CJ were coming up on episode 6, and we all know that one scene in episode 6 during the fucking wedding with Erica. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, this really toes the line, because it's all a metaphor, but it is so, like, explicit. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, this is like
really
my one
obvious
thing where, like, I'm gonna be like, all right, CJ, I know you said, like, you're cool if it's in metaphor form, but if you do need to skip over, I can't just give you what's important in the scene and we can move on. But I'm not telling him what's in the scene. I'm just like, there might be a scene where we need to, like, skip over it, and you'll let me know. But aside from that, I basically, instead of being like, these are the triggers in Umineko, I'm like, what are your absolute no's in media, basically? Because, you know, they start saying stuff like, oh, like, I cannot like, any incest in any story, immediate turn off, or, like, like sexual assaults, and, like, all the bad things in Umineko, which are usually the main triggers people have.
Lerv, the worst part about this is that I didn't really think that hard about this before I convinced my friend to read it, and then now, like, literally by EP4, this is what he tells me, and I'm like, well, you're in too deep now.
Sink or swim.
I was like, no, I felt so okay. I will find the funny, like, conversation we had, because it was just so funny and awful in a way that I felt really bad at the moment, and then I was like, what am I gonna say about this at this point?
Yeah.
And I was like, not that I thought that he would have had a hard time with it, but I was like sitting there being like, would I have acted any differently, like, if I knew that this was something that he wouldn't have a good time reading? And then I was like, I don't fucking know. I think, like, I would still probably ask him to read Umineko, because that's just how I am. But, yeah.
I was just gonna say, like, I would say in terms of content warnings, my general attitude toward it is I'm a little bit more transparent with them if it's a stranger, or, like, if I'm recommending it to a group of people that I don't know. Like, if I'm making a video about something, then I'm going to put the content warnings up front, because it's like, I don't know you people. I don't know what you can handle. But if it comes to, like, if it's a friend, then I think it's more about, like, it's kind of like the same way how you recommend it to them based on what you know about them and what they're into. It's about knowing your friend and, like, knowing what their limits are and being like, okay, so I think you would really enjoy this, but I'm not going to get into specifics, but there might be something that, like, toes the line on this thing that bothers you. It's handled well, it's handled respectfully, but, like, if you don't think you could power through that, then maybe you couldn't do it.
Yeah,
that's kind of...
Yeah, Umineko at least isn't, like, incredibly, like, explicit, as I said, with, that content. Like, it's really, like, genuinely only stuff you really pick up on if, you're looking at Umineko and like really trying hard to solve it, like it's not something you really pick up on a casual read. So that's one of the things that kind of helps in terms of like what really bothers people. Because at least me personally with my friends, I know a lot of people are like, if it's mentioned, like it's fine, like whatever, but like I don't want it like in my face. Which it has helped because like I have friends who are like, yeah, I can't really handle like, you know, like rape or pedophilia or, you know, like incest, stuff like that. But like they have made theories about like that kind of thing. Like I have a friend who like briefly theorized that like Rudolph or like Kinzo might have done like something like to Shannon or whatever. And you know it's kind of like, all right, like I kind of see where the line is there, and I'm like, I think you'll be okay to continue like Umineko without like, you know, like really explicit warnings of what's happening here, because you know the warnings in Umineko are unfortunately major spoilers.
Yeah, I would honestly say like the biggest like surface level hump to get over for most people, aside from like the stuff that's a little bit more obscured, would just be like, is your friend able to handle everything that goes on with Rosa and Maria on
like that's
screen?
the reason I
More
can't
than one
recommend it to
people.
my mom. Because, like, I know she's, like, every other aspect of Umineko aside from the gore, but, like, that specifically is, like, the one thing that would get her.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, like, that's... Yeah, I think child abuse is, like, the one, like, trigger you can just, like, outright state about Umineko, where it's, like, are you okay with, you know, seeing, like, explicit, like, abuse of children in a not fun way?
It takes a little bit in episode 1 for Rosa to pop off, but like in general, the theme of child abuse is like pretty present throughout.
It's like a prevalent theme. Like it's a huge chunk of Umineko is just about, you know, how does child abuse leads into adulthood to make you a child abuser? Like, you know, what kind of abuse? Like that's actually something that I love Umineko about, is the family dynamic and how it's written and how that leads on you to like make the decisions of like, you know, the things that you do to your children, like, you know, what you learn that you give on to themselves. So I have shared.
So that's definitely something to look out for. Like if the person you're recommending it to has like family problems, then like maybe try to like figure out what exactly they're comfortable seeing.
Because I know some people
exactly.
like engage with media like that in order to, you know, like help cope with their own feelings in like a safe environment, but some people are like on the other end of the spectrum where they're like, I don't want to see it, I don't want to touch it. So like finding out where on that line they are is very important.
Yeah. It's very important. Yeah, so I shared in the Umineko book club of this brief conversation I had with them, and it's the line is this. It says, I'm usually not big on the whole cannibalism, incest, cheating, etc. family candles. But, you know, maybe that's just a lot of people do pause badly. And I said, you know, all those things are fun to written, though. Like, good cannibalism could be very good when well written. You need to open your mind to fucked up families.
I mean, we have really good cannibalism EP2. He's already been through the cannibalism of part of Umineko.
And then his reply was, I'm sorry, I'll do that immediately.
God.
He's the person who made the meme of being like, sweetie, it's 3 a.m. It's time for your Umineko reading, and like, I like unironically and ironically to like the group of our friends, or like the things is like you receive berating from Mushroom, like I receive 200 hours of reading.
This may be the best trade deal in history, maybe ever.
I wanted to like bring up real quick, that reminds me both of a point that you can recommend people on and of a good analogy to this situation. If you have ever seen posts talking about like, please for the love of God do not recommend Revolutionary Girl Utena to people without telling them what they're in for. Because like if your friend really likes Revolutionary Girl Utena, tell them to read Umineko, but also, like, treat it like that. Be like, don't just go into it and be like, oh, I'm not going to tell you anything, because it can be a problem.
Yeah.
Especially
Yeah.
recommending it to
wait.
people you don't know. Unless they've told you
Yeah.
oh, I like these fucked up media, then it's like, okay, you're balls to the walls. Like, you read Berserk, you played Fear and Hunger, like, go for it. Like,
Do you enjoy women's wrongs?
Yeah.
That's a question.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
do you like to read about women's wrongs? Then I have the media for you.
If you watched Utena and you felt sorry for Nanami Kiryu, you will like Umineko.
Do you feel bad for bad women? Like, it's wait, I need to find that post of somebody being like calling Umineko, being like, oh, like, I can't believe, like, you would support something blah blah blah, like Umineko, and they just say a bunch of things. It's like, and the replies just says, I need you to stop spoiling Umineko for your culture war.
God, yeah.
Find it.
Because I remember, at least, like, for me, when I, like, speed ran through Umineko, like, some of the twists at the end, like, briefly turned me off, where I was like, you know, I don't know about that one. That, like, vaguely, like, upset me. And then, like, I thought about it, and I was like, okay, one, it's really good fucking fiction, and two, it kind of, like, got me in this, like, whole mindset of, like, you know, media touching on problematic topics and, like, how it's important and stuff like that. And upon, like, thinking about it for, like, a long while, I was like, you know what? All of this was really good and necessary. Umineko's the best media of all time. Like, I was just like, Vanta Battler has not been ruined for me, actually.
I think, like, the big thing that, like, one of somebody that I know said this, and I generally agree with it, is the thing with Ryukishi is, even when he depicts things that are, like, really heinous, he does so with tact, and but the thing is, he does so with tact, but he also does it, like, pretty non-judgmentally, which isn't to say that, like, he condones everything that he writes, but he puts it across in a very true-to-life way.
He humanizes people a
where
lot.
it's like, you know, right, like, you know, it's not going to be like a cartoon portrayal of this thing. It's going to be kind of uncomfortable and messy because that's how it usually happens in real life. But that doesn't mean that he's being like, and you should definitely go out and do this yourself. Because no.
Yeah, I think this is one of the conversations we had a lot about, like, how could have Yukishi wrote Sayo good? And, like, you know, we know that, like, you know, even in today in, like, our media of, like, you know, Western media, which, you know, people like to think of people as more progressive or whatever, like, there is still not a very, like, you know, a plethora of good trans representation the way how, like, everybody want to see them. And especially not towing the line of, you know, writing murder fan fiction associated with, like, you know, trans people, which, you know, is always, like, an automatic big red flag for everybody. Like, how did Yukishi was able to write this? And, like, you know, and a lot of people write about the fact that, like, people think that, like, Yukishi is probably not trans. We don't know that, like, you know. But, like, or who knows, like, you know, we see Yukishi in his trans colors and his cute trans outfit, and, you know, his Lena, like, profile pic. But, like, you know, the thing about Yukishi is that, like, he probably just wrote everybody as a person, like, as in he spent a lot of his time trying to write a person and not to, you know, like, that his approach is to, like, you know, there is this child and she's getting abuse, and what would this child do, and, like, what kind of emotional like turmoil would this person go through, like, if you were an abusive mother, like, what kind of thought process do you go through, and that using that to apply to Sayo, that he just end up writing an incredibly fully fleshed character that had incredibly interesting motivations and really not relatable is not the correct word, but sympathetic, like, reasonings that, you know, made her not bad. Like, and just, it's kind of funny that way. Like, I feel like there could have been so many places that Umineko went wrong.
I think, like, the main thing, I think Ryukishi's you know, like, the previous work as a social worker definitely really helped him in humanizing people and writing, you know, like, what he's seen, like his critique of like, you know, like mental health and like healthcare, like, you know, like for like that kind of stuff in Japan, is really fucking cool. But I think like the important thing about like Umineko and why it is very good with this representation is because it's not just like, oh, the trans person did a murder. It's the fact that no one, like basically no one in Umineko is entirely blameless. Like they are all guilty of something. No one there is a perfect being. They have all fucked up at least once, and usually a lot more times. So it's kind of like this thing where like they're all like very messy, real people who do bad things, but they also do good things, and it's really easy to sympathize with that kind of thing because you know, you get to know these people very intimately, and then, you know, like suddenly like they do something bad or do something you don't agree with, and it's kind of like, huh, I kind of understand why you're doing this, and I, you know, like instead it's kind of like, instead of like, how fucking dare you, it's like, I wish you had gotten help before you got to this point.
Right. Because that's the thing, like, I don't think Ryukishi is, like, that's the difference. I think a lot of the, like, more problematique topics that Ryukishi writes about is not written from a place of, like, not having self-awareness about what he's doing. Because there are a lot of people that write these sorts of things that have no idea what they're doing, or they don't understand, like, why they're being too carte blanche about it, and why that upsets people. Ryukishi understands these things. Like, he fundamentally is able to wrap his head around why they would discomfort people, but he's just depicting it in a true-to-life way.
As someone who has a mother who's a therapist, as well as, like, has gone to, like, multiple people who work, you know, like, with people with, like, mental health issues and stuff like that, I've kind of learned that people in that field don't necessarily, like, you know, like, separate stuff into, like, problematic and non-problematic. Like, things are very, like, you know, like, a lot of like things that are deemed problematic also like stem from like the culture you're in. And yes, there are like things that are like objectively bad things, like obviously you shouldn't do those things, but like in terms of like when you are in like a setting where you are focused on like, you know, like someone's mental health and like why they're doing the things that they are, the things become less like you're doing horrible things and more like, are you hurting someone or like, you know, like hurting yourself? And if not, what's so bad about it? You know, like don't be like ashamed for having like bad intrusive thoughts or like whatever. And the thing is like Sayo, if she had not like gone like through with like, you know, like setting bomb and like going through the whole like murder plan, if she was just writing her murder fanfics just to like get her vent out and like get her like feelings out there and just like kept those to herself, like she's not really doing anything wrong. She's just like coping with the problem in the best way she can. And I think, you know, like it's
sometimes
like
the best solution
it's a
is
weird
just
ass
to write
coping
murder
mechanism,
fanfics.
but like writing like fucked up stuff can genuinely help people get through stuff. It's just like what it is, or like reading that media. It's like, you know, like coping with your feelings in a safe environment.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, Ryui Kishi is like an example of it. Like, you know, like that. Like I think like it's sometimes like whenever I tell people when we get to EP like 7 and 8, I tell them, okay, so this is the part where Ryui Kishi is writing this story, but also like the real life Ryui Kishi has experienced that his friend died, and that like, you know, a person who like he spends a lot of time working on like Higurashi with, who like, you know, he literally wrote the character Burn Castell to be evil because his friend who he worked on Higurashi with loved like Rika, and he was like, now I'm gonna purposely write her evil just for fun for you, like to spite you, and like what a like a very important friendship to him. And like knowing that like that's what he goes into when he started to write like EP 7 and 8 really gives you like, you know, like an idea of like what kind of mindset he went into. And like I find that fascinating, like in that way, like in a way that Umineko is about like him trying to tell himself of something, like, you know.
I think for that reason too, actually, if you read Arigato for 556, knowing that it was written around that exact time, it's like it hits even harder.
Yeah, definitely. And like on the terms of like, you know, like the mindset that a lot of mental health professionals have, I think actually like moving a little past Umineko Ciconia really like establishes that really well, where like, you know, like that scene where everyone's like, you know, mild Ciconia spoilers, where like everyone's talking about like their nations and like what's okay there and what isn't okay there, and you know, like how like they're all like just like being really respectful of like, I don't really agree with the way your culture like, you know, like does stuff, but also like it's your culture, you grew up there, and like, you know, like who am I to like dictate that kind of a thing. And I just think that can be seen throughout like all of Rikushi's works of like, you know, like who are we to say what's right or wrong if it's not like, you know, like actively, you know, like hurting people, like, you know, like you can have opinions, but if you have like opinions that are going to like upset or harm people, you know, you can keep them to yourself, keep them in your brain. It's like that whole thing of like, you have your own world and you're fine in your world, but don't impede on someone else's world. Like you can't deny someone else's world. That like, that's so mean. Like, don't do that.
Video essays might work, but regular essays don't, from my experience.
Yeah.
So send my video to people. /J/J/J.
We'll post everything in the thing in the end. But also, I want to say that like, be a good witch to your readers. Like, if you are going to read Umineko with somebody, like, a good nurturing process is important. Maybe find another person to read with them so they don't have to be mad at you every single time you say the word interesting.
Actually, I have a little tip for that, because I've been reading with CJ, and CJ like hates spoilers and doesn't like want me, you know, like giving him hints or anything like that. Like nothing even like leading like, you know, like him in like any direction. And it got to a point where, like, you know, like past episode, like 4 and stuff, it kind of gets hard to be like, oh, like it's magic, or like, oh, that's interesting, because it doesn't like, you know, like do much to engage in conversation. So I established, whatever theory you come up with, if you give me evidence, I will treat it seriously and I will engage with you in that conversation as if I've never read Umineko before. And that has helped a lot with him. Like, he's had a Rosatrice he used to have Rosatrice theory for a while. And I'd be like, oh, that's interesting. Well, like, how do you explain, like, this aspect of that? And he'll, like, go off. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, like, in this scenario, like, in this hypothetical scenario, like, this would be that. And, like, she committed the crime that way. But, like, how do you explain this little area? And it gets, like, more engagement without me spoiling a single thing.
It puts them on the spot where they have to explain their thought process.
Yeah, it's basically like, I'm going to pretend, you know, like, if they don't have evidence, like, if they're not convincing me of something, I'll be like, okay, well, like, I don't know, like, can you prove that? And sometimes he can, and I'm like, shit, like, okay. And he's wrong sometimes. Like, I remember he was telling me, like, for the Canon Jessica murder, he's like, okay, well, like, the thing is, though, like, the door still could have been locked because, like, you know, like, while, like, you know, Genji and Shannon were, like, talking with Kinzo, like, one of them could have come by and, like, helped Canon lock the door and escape so Canon could still leave his master key in there. And I'm like, you know what? I'm, like, sitting there and I'm like, that, like, I can't really argue against that because, like, the timing works out and, like, Rosa is already lying about about Kinzo. You pointed that out. So, like, even if she saw, she could still be an accomplice. And, like, you know, like, everything, like, worked out perfectly where his theory made sense, but it wasn't correct. And I was like, shit, you got me there. And you know, I established, like, hey, just because I agree with one of your theories doesn't mean it's right. And he's like, yeah, I know, because you strung me on a while before with completely different theories. But just, like, establishing, like, just because you are playing along with their theory doesn't mean their theory is right is really important. I also have a rule of thumb where unless it's, like, completely inconsequential or, like, it's, like, a silly joke you're making, like, because you read out a line and you're like, I've been waiting for this line to appear so I can make one funny comment about it. I don't make jokes about things in Umineko unless he starts making the joke first, because so many of my jokes will be LGBT related. So the second my friend CJ starts joking about, like, oh, Canon dressing up as Beatrice in the dress, Canon trans, Canon with his fake boobs, I get to start making those jokes because he made them first. So then it's like I'm playing along with him instead of spoiling Umineko because I wanted to be funny. Those are my tips in terms of like being a good witch to your thing. I think start off with the magic thing, but like the second your reader starts thinking and it gets to the point where you like just can't like sit around and just say interesting anymore, just engage with them. You know, like some people like doing like red truth, blue truth, but like don't really give red truth, so you're gonna spoil shit.
I think,
you know?
Yeah.
I think that the one time I think I might give people a red truth is, you know, in EP5, the scene with the like Natsui's favorite season or something. So many people see it's like, I only told Shannon about my favorite season, and then just immediately stop and like, alright, it's apparently Shannon. And I'm like, I just want to be like, I'll say it in red. I can make a theory that says that Shannon doesn't have to tell her that, and then not explain further. Like,
yeah. I mean, like, I think, like, the easiest explanation is just, like, you know, like, if it isn't Shannon, you can literally just put, like, a number of different seasons in the room and then just tell her to pick up the object that correlates to the season she says.
It's not.
Like, it's not that hard to fake. But yeah, just humor your little Umineko baby, even if they think Rosa Trice is real. Just let them believe it for as long as they do.
Hopefully, I guess, like, since we're going to end up this episode, I hope that everybody who's listening have some vague ideas of how you could convince your Umineko reader to, you know, read 200 hours. If anybody want to share how they successfully got somebody else in their life to be able to read it, I would love to know. Like, genuinely speaking, I'm not here to, like, make, like, engagements. I genuinely speaking want to know how people successfully convince other people.
Yeah,
because, like, it's like, as we have explained in this podcast, like, it's really difficult and it's a long piece of media, and like sometimes you get hooked on incredibly different things for the reasons why you get into it, but like, be able to share that with somebody is pretty good and fun. And certified.
I have a last interjection. If you have a friend that's really into Silent Hill, the new Silent Hill game is going to be written by Ryukishi, so you can tell them that. You can tell them that they're preparing for the new Silent Hill by reading the author's work.
If Silent Hill is bad, I'm gonna cry, and if Silent Hill is gonna be good, I'm gonna cry even more.
So true.
Because one day I will meet people, and then they're gonna be like, "Oh yeah, Ryukishi, the guy who wrote Silent Hill," and then I will just combust, and then right then and there, and then I will die, and then there will lie mushroom.
I'm excited for Silent Hill to come out, so then Ryukishi can finally get Ciconia Phase 2 out.
I'm convinced this man just has it written, like, locked in his basement cellar or something, and he's just gonna be like, one day.
On God, I think Ryukishi's doing that thing where he, like, last minute is trying to rewrite the whole thing because of the, the Godzilla metaphor he said.
Yeah.
Like, just like episode 3, but, like, not because of fan interjection, but because the universe said, no, change your story.
Don't have humanity go extinct, or we're gonna go extinct.
On God, Ryukishi, if you put a plague in your in Ciconia.
I mean, he literally basically made a plague into Ciconia and then immediately regretted it deeply. He's like, the government made a plague and you got it, and then and then reality happens. This is why, like, the whole meme of like Ryukishi writing and God is peering behind his shoulder. Like, that's literally it. Like, that is what is happening.
The gift of Providence throws a ball at you.
Yeah,
I have one last little introduction for advice on how to be a good witch to your Umineko reader, which is if they say yes, the epitaph is one thing that has driven my Umineko babies insane. And the thing is, sometimes they solve it, but they don't know they've solved it. So clarifying that they won't know if they've solved it and asking if they are okay if you just tell them when they get to it has saved them so much grief, because they will get to Lord You and then they'll start trying to go past it because they're like, no, that's not it, and they'll just go crazy. And if it doesn't click for them, please just be like, because they won't get it till episode 7, and it will torture them, and then they won't stop thinking about the epitaph. It'll take time away from the rest of the mystery.
It's like, bitch, you need to stop thinking about this because there's other things for you to think about.
The amount of hours that I have spent watching my babies on the Sweet Fish Wikipedia page is insurmountable. It's too many hours.
I'm almost surprised there's not like a trivia bit on the Sweet Fish Wikipedia page. It's like Umineko.
Umineko
And that's
fans
all it
often
says.
visit this Wikipedia page.
They sit here for
We
hours.
should really start
We're
looking
not
somewhere
quite
else.
sure why.
Oh my god.
Guys.
Yeah, I think it's really funny about the whole solving Umineko thing is that now it has become more difficult to solve it because the name for not only the name for the station has changed, it also has been discontinued.
Yeah.
And also you have to be so careful about, like, if I search up Sweet Fish River, I know I'm gonna get, like, an Umineko result somewhere in that. Like...
Yeah. I mean, like, for the most part, it's pretty hard to get Umineko spoilers for the epitaph. Like, I've watched my friends go through, like, Google tabs, like, searches for hours, like, Googling stuff related to the epitaph and getting, like, no Umineko recommendations.
Yeah.
I think one thing in terms of, like, the railway being discontinued is when they get to Taiwan, they're like, can you get, and especially if they get to, like, like, the hometown, I forget the name of it, If they get to, I think it's Taipei. If they get to the Taipei answer and they're like, I don't know, it's like really hard to find a map. If ask them if you can send them a map and give them a map that has like the railways kind of highlighted. It's just like my one little recommendation because they won't know you purposely did it. They'll just be like, oh, you gave me a good map, thank you. And then they'll start looking around the map. They're like, wait a minute. The railway could be a
from
river.
the 60s?
Killian Station. Look at the kanji. No fucking way. That's it's a shore, a village. And they'll feel very smart. If CJ, if you're listening to this in the future, I'm sorry.
Did you do that to CJ?
Yeah, I sent him a map with the railways slightly highlighted. To be fair, he did go back and forth on it, and he's like, what if Killy is just a big coincidence and I'm very, very wrong? Oh no. And I was like, I mean, do you think that? And he's like, maybe. And he started searching for a while again, and then he went back to it. But it was like my one little thing where I was like, I've been watching you try to solve the Umineko epitaph for over a year now, so I'm just gonna give you like this one little bone.
So nice. Yeah, honestly speaking, I feel like we have said the ending closing segment so many times. Everybody just say goodbye and then we can end this episode.
Yeah.
Bye!
Bye!